Inravio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and you're watching the 5 Off, 5 On Racing Show. Welcome. Today we have a live studio audience, and believe it or not, when I left my place today and got in the car, there was like 4 inches of snow. So the people on the west end that intended to come kind of got scared away because of the weather, but we have a nice crowd here. We didn't have to open up the balcony, so that's a good thing. But we have some people here that I want to recognize. Former street stock late model driver, Bruce Edwards. I'll tell you what, that guy had one of the nicest looking race cars ever that I've seen that have raced. And welcome. Nice to, he made the trip from Ronkonkoma. Mike Jarecki from Long Island, no, MyRacers.com. I almost said it wrong there, right? And I'll tell you what, also known as Jaws, he took over when Walter couldn't do it anymore, and we're grateful for that. MyRaceNews.com, I was part of that contingent, went to a lot of races with Walter and the gang, and it's just good to see that somebody took it over, and it's all good. Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed, Tuesday nights, Table Vision, Woodbury, and he's been doing this for a long time, and he's also our cameraman on the road, so I want to thank Kevin for coming out. Yeah, we also have Joe Cicella, a longtime crew chief for his brother Brian, was also a crew chief on a couple of cars that I fielded at the Riverhead Raceway, so good to see. And we have a former Eastern Kart Racing Association driver, Kerry Larson, who's in the audience as well. And we can't forget Chuck Schultz, who puts this all together, driver of the 52 Charger at Riverhead Raceway. A couple of wins under his belt, and there was one that he missed just by that much, you know? So we always joke about that. But anyway, welcome. Daytona 500 is this week. Speed Weeks, as they call it, is taken off. Bronson had an opener. New Smyrna is doing their thing, and they had the Sprint Unlimited race on Saturday night, and pole qualifying yesterday at Daytona International Speedway. And the funny thing about this pole qualifying thing, you know, they started this association, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the pole qualifying went to a guy that, who would have thought, if you would have said to me during the holidays, you know, this guy Elliott, Chase Elliott's going to win the pole for the Daytona 500, I would have laughed. I would have said, no way. But, you know, he's in a Hendricks Motorsports car. He's taken over the seat where Jeff Gordon vacated. And he did a really nice job, so it's going to be interesting to see, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move along. But speaking of qualifying, Martin Truex Jr. and his 78 Furniture Row Toyota was not permitted to make a Daytona 500 qualifying run on Saturday because NASCAR inspectors, on Sunday, because NASCAR inspectors did not like the way his roof flaps lined up. Now, you would think that's a big deal, but he's part of this new thing where 36 teams are automatically in the event, and he's part of that. So the 78 is one of the 36 charter cars and guaranteed a starting spot. Now, he will start last in the dual races on Thursday, but he's already in the race. And these dual races now take a whole different meaning. In my opinion, they make no meaning whatsoever. So anyway, the Sprint Unlimited was a wreck fest on Saturday night, and it's going to be. There's nothing on the line. There's no points. It's all about money. It's all about bragging rights, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. But I want to tip my hat to a Long Island native, Mike Wheeler, who cut his teeth, so to speak, here on Long Island at Riverhead Raceway. He earned his first victory as a crew chief when Denny Hamlin won the Sprint Unlimited at Daytona this past Saturday night. Mike, involved with a lot of the teams here on Long Island at Riverhead Raceway, won on, and as a crew chief, he's 1 for 1, so you can't ask for more than that. But live studio audience, this is really awesome. I usually talk to nothing. I talk to a camera. Now I got people who want all their eyes are on me. It's a whole different ball game. But we're gonna have some giveaways, some trivias to go on. In fact, we're gonna come back in a little bit. We're not gonna break, but we're gonna come back with some trivia questions in a little bit, and we have some nice prizes to give away. And from the looks of it, everybody that's here today is gonna walk out with some kind of a prize. So I want people to come back. But anyway, after we do the results of the Sprint Unlimited, we'll go with our first of 8 trivia questions. But the Sprint Unlimited at Daytona, Denny Hamlin, as I said earlier, was the winner, followed by Joey Logano. Paul Menard was 3rd, Kyle Larson 4th, Casey Mears was 5th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was 6th, Kurt Busch 7th, Austin Dillon 8th, Brad Keselowski 9th, and rounding out the top 10, Greg Biffle. Now we all know that Greg Biffle's spotter is Long Island native Freddie Kraft. So not a bad run from Freddie for taking care of Biffle, moving up the ranks here, I'll tell you. I'm pretty proud of this guy. But trivia, who's ready for some Daytona 500 trivia stuff?
Yeah, let's go.
Who's ready? All right. So let's get that first question on the board.
We're ready for some trivia. Joe, what do you got?
All right.
Our first question is, who is the only foreigner to win the Daytona 500? Andretti? Foreigner.
Oh, I know that. Mario was born in the United States. Come on.
We got to pick somebody. So go ahead, take it.
Mario Andretti.
Who's that?
Mario Andretti.
Is that the correct answer, Joe?
The correct answer is Mario Andretti. Very
Mario
good, very
Andretti,
good.
correct answer. Now we have tickets for the Paramount Theater in Huntington, Long Island, New York. We have a whole bunch of different tickets. We have Marshall Tucker. We've got Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, Mayday Parade. Got your pick of choices tickets at the Paramount Theater, so we'll get your choices at the end.
Now let's go with trivia question number 2.
Trivia question number 2. Who was the first driver to earn over $100,000 for winning the Daytona 500? Who was it? Bill Elliott? Let's see. Buddy Baker.
Buddy Baker is
All right, so we'll have more trivia questions in the next break.
Now, you know, when Lee Petty won the first Daytona 559, he made like $9,000, which in 1959 was big money. But Buddy Baker won $102,175 in 1980, winning the Daytona 500, which nobody could even imagine that kind of a payday up until that time. You know, it's funny when you look at what racing costs and what it pays, and back then you were making a living racing. Even in your local series, the late Bob O'Rourke, who was a race director here on Long Island at ISO Speedway and at Riverhead Raceway, and also at New Egypt and the Race of Champions, he said back in the day, back in the 60s, you could race 5 nights a week and make a living. But a $100,000 payoff for Buddy Baker, that was just incredible back then. Incredible. But yeah, back in the day, things were so much different then. You know, I never thought I'd be that guy saying that. When I was a kid growing up and I'd see old guys talking, I'd say, oh, back in my day. I said, I'll never be like that. I became that, all right? The first step's admitting it, they say. So I became that. But, you know, you look at the old racing, and it was different. Guys came to the track on open trailers. They didn't have these traveling motor coaches where there was a house in the front of it practically, and then you had your cars in the back and all your equipment double stacked. It's a whole different era now compared to what it was when we were growing up. Some of us in this room have been around for the 60s and the 70s, but you know, it's just a good thing, Anyway, so like I said earlier, the Sprint Unlimited became a wreck fest, and Denny Hamlin, he was the eventual winner. But it was scheduled for 70 laps, or 75 laps, 25 laps with a competition caution, and a 50-lap dash for the cash, so to speak. The race ended up going 79 laps, and 21 of the 25 cars that raced in the event were involved in accidents. Now, that just goes to show me that it's all about just winning. It's all about the bragging rights. And the bragging rights and winning a race like that is just, it has a nice payday, don't get me wrong. But as I've talked on other shows, just because it says the guy won $200,000, that does not necessarily go to that driver, because each driver has his own deal. Some drivers get a percentage of the purse, some guys are on salary, some guys get extra for wins and top fives. So when you look at, the driver made X number of dollars. And they used to report that. They used to show that on the TV and put it in the results, such and such started 4th, finished 9th, and made X, Y, Z. And they stopped doing that for whatever reason. Even at the Sprint Cup Series banquet, they used to say, earning $2,872,000, so-and-so. They don't do that anymore. And I don't know why, and I can't get an answer for that, but they kind of just stopped doing that. So anyway, $102,000, I'm looking at that. That was like a big payday for him back then. But anyway. Tony Stewart, we all know about what happened to Tony Stewart, going out having a good time with his buddies, racing his quad, and he's going to miss the Daytona 500 due to a burst fracture of his L1 vertebrae. Stewart is rehabbing with extensive physical therapy, and Brian Vickers will drive Stewart's car for the Daytona 500. We don't know how long Tony Stewart's going to be out, but I'll tell you what, there's already been discussion. Is he going to be given the same concessions that Kyle Busch was given when he missed 11 races due to his broken legs that he suffered at the Daytona 500 last year? And you know what? They've already set precedent, because they let Denny Hamlin do the same thing the previous season, although it wasn't a factor at the end. But, here's Tony Stewart. Now, Tony Stewart has been very vocal, though, against some of the stuff that he does not like in NASCAR. He has made it clear that he feels that Brian France, who runs the show, should step down. And he's been very vocal about that. He said Brian France does not go into the garage area. Brian France does not talk to the drivers. And Brian France wouldn't know a driver if he walked past him on the street. And you don't say stuff like that, because that's kind of come back to haunt you, because anything that's in the gray is all of a sudden not going to be gray, and it's not going to go in your favor. And NASCAR is good at doing stuff like that. You got to remember, it's their sandbox, it's their sand, and you're bringing your toys to their sandbox to play in their sand. And if you don't play it the way they want it to be played, you're the odd guy out. So Tony Stewart, he might have needed to take a step back. He was already in the limelight for some of the stuff that was negative, and that stuff that went on upstate, and some other things that went on with him in the fight and in the grandstands, that he really wasn't a fight. It was more of a verbal confrontation. You want to keep a low profile, because NASCAR doesn't like that negative publicity. But I'll tell you what, a guy like that is good for the sport, because the sport is missing characters. And what I mean by characters, guys that you love to hate. Back in the day when it was, you go even to your local racetrack. I remember Al D'Angelo with the skull and crossbones on his car. He was the bad guy, and he was the guy to beat every week. And the fans loved it, and the guys and gals would come out to just watch him get beat or try to get beat. That's what's missing in racing today. It's very cookie cutter, it's very mom and pop, and everybody has to be perfect. And you know what? It's not a perfect world. It's not a perfect world, and you need those types of things. So, but anyway, you guys ready for another trivia question?
No, why not?
Let's do one more, and we'll go. We'll take a break. Let's see. We have a roving reporter who's going to rove over to the group.
So trivia question number 3. Who holds the record for the most Daytona 500 wins?
Oh, I got that.
Oh, well.
Oh, my God.
All right. Kevin won. Congratulations, Kevin.
I met that guy close.
Richard Petty
That guy?
won 7 times the Daytona 500, winning in 64, 66, 71, 73, 74, 79, and 81. Richard Petty back in the day was one of the guys that he was the one to beat week in and week out. And You know, it was just a whole different thing with Petty Enterprises back in those days. They had a lot of money, and it was not their own money, because you got to understand that Lee Petty was just a farmer, and Richard Petty worked for his dad, and their business, when farming wasn't working, was racing. And he was one of the first guys to come out with big corporate sponsorship, STP. And a lot of guys that were racing back then, they didn't have big corporate sponsorship. Yeah, they might have had help from Ford or Chevrolet, or even back in the old days, Oldsmobile, but they didn't have that corporate money that Richard Petty was getting. And as a few of the drivers of that era felt that he wasn't even sharing it. Now, why should he share it? And a little known fact about Petty Racing and Petty Enterprises is when the late, his grandson, his name's escaping me at the moment, but when Adam Petty was moving into Sprint Cup, it was still the Winston Cup, and Sprint was their sponsor. The Pettys got Sprint involved with racing, and after Adam's untimely death in the practice session, Sprint became more involved with NASCAR and became the title sponsor under the name Nextel at the time. So a lot of people don't know that Richard Petty got them involved. So he did share the wealth a little bit. He did share the wealth. And I was working in North Carolina, I was working in Greensboro, and I would go into Level Cross every once in a while and go over into the Petty shop in Randleman. There was a sign, it was these athletic fields along the road, baseball, softball, tennis, and the sign as you drove by was built with Petty cash, with Petty in parentheses. So he gave back to his community, he did all the right things. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back, we're going to talk about some of the things that are going on in Daytona and elsewhere when we come back.
Hey, this is Chris Less Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Hey, before we move on, I just want to let everybody know that former NASCAR competitor Lenny Pond succumbed to cancer last week. Pond was 75. He was a Sprint Cup Series Rookie of the Year in 1973 and fifth in the Sprint Cup Series points in 1976. He had one victory, which was at Talladega, and in 1978, that was in 78, and he had 234 starts and 88 top tens. Our prayers go out to Lenny Pond, his family, and another guy from our era. We just lost another one. It seems like every week we're losing somebody. But anyway, back to trivia. Back to trivia. We got another question up there. What do we got?
Next question was, who was the first woman to compete in the Daytona 500? Well, let's see if somebody else can get it. And then we'll let you get it wrong. Go ahead. Anybody else? Janet Guthrie,
Janet
1977.
Guthrie. Sarah Christian was the first woman to compete in the top series in NASCAR back in 1948, when it was considered the modified division. The modifieds was the first division that NASCAR had, and some people say that NASCAR's forgotten about their modified guys. I don't think so. I think the modifieds are still a part of the NASCAR family. But anyway, some people will disagree, and that's okay. That's okay. Speaking of NASCAR, Dave Blaney, who's a Sprint Cup Series driver, won the All-Star Circuit of Champions Dirt Car Nationals in Barboursville, Florida, this past weekend. So congratulations to Dave Blaney on a win. You know, it's funny, you see these Sprint Cup Series guys and Xfinity guys, even some of the truck guys, going and racing these dirt cars and sprint cars and midgets, and because they're racers, they want to race. They want to go out and race, they want to have a good time. I know I had not hopped in really any kind of racing vehicle in quite some time, and I had the opportunity, thanks to Green Flag Racing and Gary and his gang down at the Wall Township Speedway, to hop into TQ and have some fun a few times with that. And I'll tell you what, I never raced at Wall when I was younger. I never really went to the Turkey Derby because, you know, when I was younger, it just seemed so far. And then as I got older, I was working a job at UPS where that was our busy time. You didn't take off to go racing. So the first time I went on that racetrack at Wall, and if anybody's ever been there, they see that the banks are high, and I'm kind of watching other people and watching the line. What do I got to do? And you know, you got to really almost get to the wall in the straightaways where you can almost touch the wall, and then you kind of dive bomb into the corners. Well, the first time I did that, I was at full speed going down the backstretch, and okay, well, I'm going to come from the top down to the bottom, and it was like being on a roller coaster. My stomach went into my throat, and then it went down to my toes, and it was awesome, awesome feeling, let me tell you. But anyway, Daytona 500. You know, auto racing is probably one of the only sports that they run their biggest event of the year first. Baseball's World Series is at the end of the season. Super Bowl in football, and I don't think I'm supposed to say that, but whatever, I said it, sorry, is at the end of the season. The NBA championship game is at the end of the season. So NASCAR has done this where they made Daytona. It's an event. It's almost 2 weeks worth of fun and frolic. The midway is full of stuff. All the sponsors are there giving stuff away, trying to entice you to be part of their team. And I'll tell you what, there was one year at Daytona, we got so much stuff that I had to ship it home. It didn't fit in the car going back. And there was just the stuff they give away and the fun that you have and the meet and greets with the drivers and the teams. They make themselves accessible because they're trying to buy your fanship, so to speak. So what they want to do is get you involved, and they want you to wear their equipment, their shirts, their hats, their T-shirts. They want you to do that. So Daytona, it's like a week-long carnival. And if you've never been to Daytona during Speed Weeks, you got to go. You got to go once in your lifetime. If you're a race fan, you need to go to Daytona once for Speed Weeks because it's just awesome. And you could spend all day at Daytona Speedway, and then whether you like dirt or asphalt, you could spend every night somewhere else. You can go to Volusia County for the dirt nationals, and you can go then to New Smyrna for they call it the World Series Auto Racing. And we'll talk about that probably next week because they'll have all the results and who won and who didn't win. But I did notice something today, and I was looking at the entry list for New Smyrna, and I only saw 14 or 15 modifieds. And that's kind of disturbing, because I can remember going to New Smyrna and there being 40, 50 cars in the pits, modified cars. That doesn't count, because they run their regular weekly stuff too. 15 cars, and it used to be a separate race for the SK type cars, the Tour type and the SK separates. Now they race them together, and an SK type car could finish like 12th, but if he's the first SK car across the line, that makes him the winner of the SK portion. And you know, sometimes they got to take a look at that. What's wrong with that picture? It used to be you got a nice piece of change for going to race there, but I guess the cost and the expense of going and hotels, and because it's speed weeks, and they jack up the prices and they price gouge people. Maybe that's why the economy is better now than it's been in the past. Gas up here in New York is like around $1.80 a gallon, where just a couple of years ago it was over $4. So the economy is getting a bit better. So where are these teams? Why are they not going to this event? And when they come back and they start coming back to New England here, and I'm going to talk to some of these teams, and even talk to some of these teams that didn't go who normally do, and find out why they didn't. Is it the economy? I think the economy is better, like I said. Is it they don't like the officiating? Is it they want to save their car for they're running a tour or they're running a weekly? I don't know. I don't know, but we're going to find that out, and we'll have that answer by our next show. But it's like, when you think about that, you think about how it was even at your local track years ago. I can remember, heat races with 12 and 15 cars in them here on Long Island, back at Riverhead, back in the day. And now you at least in the past couple of years, you weren't even getting that many cars to run a feature event. Now, it looks like here on Long Island, that's going to change with the new ownership with Eddie Partridge and Tom Gatz. There's going to be heat races, from what I understand, for every division. And I've said that for the last few years when Riverhead stopped running heat races. Some of these guys, that's the seat time that they need. You don't just want to throw somebody out in a feature with all the other cars. Let them get laps in. 10 extra laps every week at the end of the season adds up to 180 laps, pretty much. That's almost a whole season, in and itself, just with heat races. Practice is one thing. People go out with old tires and they're not really pushing it, and some guys aren't. But they need those heat races, and it's good for the fans, and it's good for these new guys coming up, and it gives the opportunity for a new guy. And I can remember when I first started, or when I made my second comeback back in the late 80s, it had been a long time since I raced, and the cars were faster, and they were lighter, and they were lower, and it was a whole different thing for me. And we ran a heat race, and I said to someone, I said, I'm just not there. I'm going in way deep, and I'm losing all my speed. I'm coming out here, I'm spinning. So they told me to follow George Brown. I followed George Brown, and I felt like I was going slower, but my lap times are so much faster. Because we had that opportunity in a heat race to do that. Because he didn't go out and practice. It was one of those things. But that's what you need. You need these heat races, and I know we've talked about that with people. But this past Saturday, I had the opportunity to be at John Mean's shop with Kevin Basic from Long Island Need for Speed, and we were talking about the old days. And John was talking about Charlie Dzonbach, and amongst others. We were there for hours talking racing. And John said when he was talking to Charlie one day, Charlie says, I go out there to win every time. I go out there, I want to win my heat race. I want to win my feature. And then John says he even wanted to win practice. He wanted to be the best guy on the racetrack at all times. And the late Johnny Zell, figure eight driver for years and years and years, I said to him one time, I said, John, why do you go out there and drive so hard in practice? He goes, well, if it's going to fall off or break, I wanted to do it then, not when I'm during my race. And I didn't understand that for the longest time. I was like, yeah, I'm just a kid. I'm new to this game. I went from fan to race car driver over the winter. And we all know that that's not easy. It's not that easy. I wasn't mechanical, so if something broke, I had to depend on somebody else. But when he said that to me, it didn't register that first time around when I was racing. That second time around, though, it did. And that's when you try, hey, maybe I can go in a little deeper. Maybe I could back off a little sooner. Maybe I change my points, because that's big. It's a rhythm. If you listen to a car on time trials, it's a rhythm. We'll pick Riverhead, for example. 12-second average on a time trial lap, 11.8 to 12.2 in that range. You listen, and when you go there for a time trial, it's going to be 3 seconds on the gas, and you're going to have 3 seconds off. 3 seconds on, 3 seconds. It's a rhythm. It's not you just mash the gas pedal and you mash the brake. There's a rhythm to that. And a lot of people think it's so easy. I thought it was easy. When I sat in the grandstands, well, I could do that. And I get in my car for the first time, and I'm going to be in a heat race, and I'm a new guy, so I'm starting like 15th. Well, actually, I think I started 20th in my heat race because there was like 80 cars. And here I was And I'm going faster than the speed of light. Yeah, I misshifted going in, so everybody took off without me because I only had driven a standard stick vehicle maybe 3 times prior to that day. And I'm like, wow, I must be going 150 miles an hour on this 50-mile racetrack at Isis Speedway. And next thing I know, there was 2 guys I heard coming behind me. One was Chris Young, the late Chris Young, and the late Ernie Maynard. Their cars had a distinct sound to them back then. And so I look in the mirror, I go, do one of these real quick, and there they are. So I just dropped down low, and they buzzed by me. So did the rest of the field. So this 10-lap heat race, I was like 5 laps down, and I thought I was going faster than the speed of light. And I mean, it was just a whole different thing. And it took a long time for me to realize that, everybody can't do this. Because if everybody, that's why there's crew guys and drivers. Because some crew guys, you know what, I'd rather wrench the cars. I don't want to be the driver. And then there's guys who, like me, don't want to wrench the cars because, A, I don't know how, and I'm not afraid to say that. If something breaks in the motor, I don't know. If the car don't start, I can't figure it out. And my former crew chief was like, he'll test to that. He'll tell you. I was like, oh, wow, we got a problem, And, all right, just go have a soda. Leave us alone. But I was good at a couple of things. And I'm going to share this little story. I finally convinced Brian, Joe's brother, to drive one of my cars. I come to the house, we talk, okay. We all shake hands, hug and kiss, it's all good. Now we're going to go to the shop. Like, practice is next Saturday. Here's my car. It's the chassis rail and roll cage. And Brian goes, you think we're going to make the second practice? And Joe said, all right, think you're going to make open a day? I said, we're going to make the first practice. And I whipped out a body. And Joe will tell you, I whipped out a body in like that Saturday.
Looked like a boat.
No, not that car, Kevin. I whipped out a body
Pink one?
for the blunderbuss car in like a day. And then I painted it during the week. And they came with their dad the following Saturday, and they were like, no way. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. I'm not that I'm such a good body man and I could create. I crashed so many times that I got good at changing body panels. It's all good. We had a good time. And that's what it's all about. And having a good time and having these stories to tell. So it's good. I want to I had a lot of fun with Joe and Brian when the racing. And this past season, when I did go to the Riverhead race, I got to spend some time with my old buddy Bruce Edwards with the Roger Oxy team. And we had good food and we had some good drink. And we got to share some stories, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's definitely all about. Anyway, do we have time for another trivia question before we go take this break? I think we do.
So true or false, the infield of the Daytona International Speedway consists of 500 acres of land.
True or false?
50-50. So what do you think? You going to say false? Let's see what the answer is. I think there is 180 acres and a lake.
And a lake, 180 acres of land encompasses just the infield. That does not include the grandstand, the parking area, and the land that they use on special events where they just have to put people in them. 180 acres on the infield. And that lake was created when they dug the sand to make the banks. All of a sudden, water's coming up. So they cordoned it off and put a bulkhead around it. And Lake Lloyd, as it's called now, is I wouldn't say in the middle, but it's more towards the backstretch. But 180
And they drive
acres.
boats on there.
Think about that. 180 acres of land just comprise the infield. And the triover section where the grass is, that's big enough to put an entire football field on, which there has been some talk about moving one of the Florida football teams to Daytona Speedway under the guidance of Brian France. Tony Stewart's going to have a lot of fun with that. Anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this new NASCAR group that they formed, this new group, when we come back.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Murphy Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're a punch in the. But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
The Daytona International Speedway. I'll tell you what, the first time that I went to Daytona was around 1993. I think that was the first time I went. And we're driving down International Speedway Boulevard, and there's a dog track, well, was a dog track, in the western part of the facility, on the western side. And we're driving down, and like I said, it's my first time. I'm like a kid in a candy store. And I pull up, and I'm driving, I'm stopped at the light. I says, oh my God, there's the Daytona Speedway. And, you know, people that were with me would start laughing because it was the dog track. And I saw all this steel and stuff with pictures on it. That was the front stretch. I was like, what? So, of course, I have to pull in. I have to go take the tour and stuff. And I was like, wow. Wow. And I must have been there maybe 20 times in my lifetime. And what we, you know, and every time I went, I tried to do something else, and actually worked an event there a couple of times. I worked a cup race there, and I worked that modified race, and I had the battle at the beach, which was, you know, okay, you know, it was different. But, you know, when I look at the Daytona, when you look at that track and the enhancement they've made, and it's the new Daytona International Speedway now. They took away the backstretch grandstands, and they made it more friendly, and they put escalators and whatnot. And I can remember going, I had my seats were in the Nextel Tower at the time, and the top row behind me were the suites. And it was great, you know, you got up there nice, okay, good. Now the race is over, you're there for like, at this point, 10 hours. And you know, you've partaken in some like nice refreshments, and you've had some nice food, and the sun's been baking on you all day. Now you have to go down all these stairs. And it was like, I always said, why don't they put escalators in? Well, they finally did, and not because I said so, but there was a whole big changeover. It's more fan-friendly, and that was their intention. International Speedway Corp, when they did the enhancements at Daytona International Speedway, International Speedway Corp, the owner of these racetracks, other than Bruton Smith and his little group of tracks. But when you look back at how it's grown, it used to be just one little set of stands. When I first went in 1992, there was only 1 second deck. And it was really where the tower was, where the control tower was, where the TV people were, and the people running the races. And each year it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And you know, it's just amazing. Over 200,000 people fit into that place. And I'll tell you what, my hat's off to the police and whatnot of Daytona Beach. They get you in, they get you out, and they have all kinds of different things. Public transportation is like awesome. You know, you can go down a highway somewhere off A1A or Route 1 and catch a bus, and the bus doesn't even go on the road. It goes through all these back trails, and it brings you right to the bridge that takes you into the property, and at the end they're waiting for you. So it's I'll tell you what, my hat's off to them. They do a nice job. And in fact, all of the racetracks do that I've been to, and I've been to many. Anyway, we ready for another question there, folks? Now, look, these
You
aren't
bet.
hard
We're ready.
questions. They're not hard questions, so, maybe we can get some now. Kat?
So who holds the qualifying record for the Daytona 500? I think I know this one. And why? Bill Elliott? Let's see. It's Bill Elliott, 210 miles an hour.
1987, he had that the Thunderbird that they used to call the Superbird, and at 210 miles an hour. And that's when NASCAR decided, these cars are going way too fast. We need to do something here. So what they ended up doing is now the super speedways with the restrictor plates. And there were other things. There was some crashes or wrecks that they felt that happened because of the aero. And you get a little air under these things, and they would just take off like jet planes. So Bill Elliott, 210 miles an hour on that track. And his son, Chase Elliott, will be on the pole for the Daytona 500. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So anyway, yes, NASCAR. NASCAR and the Sprint Cup teams have entered into a long-term agreement that puts the teams with more increased business certainty and the ability to work more closely with the NASCAR people to produce best-in-class racing. NASCAR has granted charters to 36 teams, establishing a team owner council, giving the teams formal input into decisions, and provides other teams with new revenue opportunities. Each charter team has a guaranteed entry into the field of every NASCAR event. The balance of the field will be open to non-charter teams, obviously. Now, looking at the list of the 36 teams, there's really only 19 owners. This is one of my things that I've been talking about for a long time. There's only 19 owners that are in this allegiance, or this charter group. And these 19 owners are mostly multiple car team owners. And let's just go down the list real quick. And I don't want to bore you, but I want to bring something to your attention. And this is in no particular order, but Petty Motorsports, they have two cars, the 43 and the 44. And the 44 was formerly the 9, so the owner points transfer over. Richard Childress Racing has the 3, the 27, and the 31. Team Penske has the 2 and the 22. Hendrick Motorsports has the 5, the 24, the 48, and the 88. Roush Fenway Racing has the 6, 16, and 17. Chip Ganassi with the 1 and the 42. Joe Gibbs Racing, the 11, the 18, and the 20. Michael Waltrip Racing, and people say, well, they're out of business. However, the cars, the 15 and the 55, are entitled to owner points based on last year. Whoever buys that number, you got to buy a number, and I'll explain that a little bit. Stewart Haas Racing with the 4, the 10, and the 14. Furniture Row, the 78. Front Row Motorsports has the 34, which was formerly the 38. JT Dougherty, 47. Tom Boulder Racing, the 7. Germain Racing, the 13. Go Fast Racing, the 32. BK Racing, the 23 and the 83. Premium Motorsports has the 62. Circle Sport Racing has the 95, which is formerly the 33. And H. Scott Motorsports has the 15, which is formerly the 51. So, those are the guys, those are the teams, they're the charter group. That doesn't leave a lot of room for other teams to come into the sport and go racing, because these guys are guaranteed in no matter what happens. These guys just basically have to show up, practice 1 lap, do 2 laps of time trials. They could be the slowest car on the racetrack, and they're in that event. And what happened to the fastest guys? 60 guys show up, the fastest 40, well, the fastest 38 will win with 5 provisionals. Those days are over. And it's just like, and I know that the peanut gallery is going to probably make a comment about this. It's like, how does a guy win the championship when he misses 11 races? I don't know. I don't know. But talking about the owners, numbers. Buy a number. And you don't buy the numbers, but I want that number. How much is it? It's you have an owner's license, and on your owner paperwork in the Sprint Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, Camp World Truck Series, K&N Pro Series East and West, and the Modified Series and the Southern Modified Series, and any of the Touring Systems Series, that owner the team owner owns that number. So every time that car goes on the racetrack, that owner garners owner points. Michael Waltrip Racing shut its doors. However, these cars are still going to race under somebody else's ownership, the 15 and the 55. They had owner points in 2015. They will be eligible for, obviously, they're going to make the races anyway. And I think that's why Michael Waltrip is back, because he's guaranteed a spot in, because the car he's running has owner points from last year, and they're in the charter system. So you buy a number, and that was one of the things that was happening with the Modified Tour, is some of the other racetracks, like guys from New England didn't want to come down into Long Island, so they took a Long Island guy's car and they threw their number on it. So NASCAR circumvented that, and they came up with the rule that the race car, even though it had like somebody else's number on it, the crew chief and that hauler had to be there. Now, that was a little ridiculous in my opinion, but what was happening was they were playing games with the owner points. And anytime the teams start playing games with a rule or trying to circumvent the rule or fit their needs, NASCAR clamps down on it. And it's the team's job to push that envelope, and it's NASCAR's job to seal it. Like it or not, that's what they do. And I spent a lot of years behind the scenes in NASCAR, and there were meetings to discuss these things. Meetings to discuss who's doing what, who's doing where, what can we do to fix that. And that gray area has changed sometimes every week. People find a loophole, then a rules addendum will come out, closing that loophole. So that's how that works there. So for those who are saying, Michael Waltrip Racing, Joe, you're crazy, they're out of business. That's why. That number is eligible for races to get in, guaranteed. And you know what? It's like saying, I'm going to go to hockey. It's like saying, well, the Islanders and the Rangers, they're pretty good, so we're going to guarantee them a spot in the playoffs. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It should be whoever many teams show up to race and take time, the top guys in time are in the show. And, the old provisional thing, that, for those who don't know, that provisional thing was started because one year Richard Petty didn't make the Daytona 500. And he went into Bill France and he says, this will be the first 500 that there isn't a Petty in it. We can't have this. Thus, provisionals, past champion. That was the first provisional NASCAR gave out. They gave him a provisional based on a past champion. And that was expanded to the guy in the top in points that didn't make it and owners in the top in points. That was to make everybody happy. But you know what? I'm not for that. You know what? If you're going to start 40 cars, the 40 fastest cars should be in that event. That's my opinion. Just my opinion. Anyway, looks like we're time for another trivia question.
All right, another big question. Well, in 1974, the federal government petitioned NASCAR to shorten events due to the energy crisis. How many miles was the 1974 Daytona 500? Only 23 miles.
With his discussion on this one.
It's 400, 350. I'm hearing all different ones. Give us an answer. 450 miles.
Back in 1974, the federal government went to NASCAR and said, there's an energy crisis. We need to cut back. Now, the fuel used in race cars and the fuel used on the street are not the same. So NASCAR, to be, they got to keep, friendly with the politicians and the government, decided that they would cut all their races 10% that year, which was big. So the Daytona 500 that year, although it was still called the Daytona 500, only went 450 miles. Just like the 500-mile race at Martinsville went 450 miles instead of 500 laps, it went 450. So there was a 10% reduction in all the races that year due to the energy crisis. Now, some of us were around in '74. We remember, the gas lines and odd and even license plates and minimums. You can only get so much, and and you go back to that, and NASCAR had to do what it had to do because it wasn't that they were using the same fuel as everybody else. it was an image. It was the image that they were portraying. And a lot of people said, they're just out there every Sunday wasting gas. They didn't race that kind of gas. They raced racing fuel, which was made specially. And I don't know how they make racing fuel, but it has some high octane in it, let me tell you. Let me tell you. Right, anyway. So, live audience, how are we going over there?
Real good, real good.
Now, I want to take the opportunity. Give yourselves a hand, because, it's a miserable, snowy, rainy night, and I want to thank you guys and gals for coming out. It was really good. And, but, it's funny when you do a live thing like that. Sometimes the weather plays a part, and the weather played a big part. As George was saying, he goes, "Man, I almost didn't come. I didn't almost come. It was snowing. It was snowing." I even said to my driver, if we didn't have a live audience, we'd be staying home. But anyway.
Dirt tracking it anyway, baby.
So, hey, you know what? Our Daytona correspondent, you guys didn't know I had a Daytona correspondent, did you? Sarah is down in Daytona International Speedway. Let's hear what Sarah has to say. Sarah, you out there?
This is Sarah Martin with Inravio TV, and we're here at Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. They just did a $400 million redevelopment on this, and they call it Daytona Rising. It's amazing. This is the center of racing here. I mean, this is fantastic. We're live. I mean, it's a beautiful day in Daytona Beach, Florida. So please keep watching. We have much more for you.
All right. They redid this whole place. It's like awesome. It's like awesome. And again, the first time I actually went on the infield, I was going through the tunnel, because the tunnel goes under turn 4, and it's 2 lanes, 1 in, 1 out, obviously. And as I was going through it, and this is going to sound hokey. I mean, it's 1992. How old am I? I don't know. 35 maybe, 35 years old, 34 years old. And I'm going through the tunnel, and I looked and I said to people, I went, Richard Petty drives through this tunnel. 'Cause he was my idol, Lee Petty, Dale Earnhardt. They're taking the same way to the track that I'm taking right now. And then when you go underneath, it gets really dark, and then you're coming back up, and there it is. There it is. It's like, wow. And if you've never experienced, it's just a tough thing to experience. And like I said earlier, if you're a race fan and you've never been to Daytona, you need to go at least once. You need to go at least once. Book early, because hotels are at a premium, but you need to go at least once. But anyway. During the break, I was chatting with some of the folks in the audience, and we were talking about the K&M Pro Series race that went on in New Smyrna Beach as part of the World Series of Asphalt Auto Racing. And we're going to have all those results for the New Smyrna stuff next week. But without saying who won, I'm sure everybody already knows someone, but there was a faux pas in this event. For some reason, they went an extra lap under green. I don't know how that happened. I don't know why it happened. But the race should have ended, and it didn't, because they went an extra lap. And because of that extra lap, they tore up a lot of the cars in the front, tore up a lot of equipment. And that's wrong, and somebody needs to explain that. But hopefully by next week we'll have an explanation. But anyway, we're going to take a break. We come back, we'll do a little more stuff with the audience and some of the stuff that's going on down south when we come back.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
This is Sarah Martin at Daytona International Speedway, and you're watching Inravio TV.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to do our last trivia concert, and here we go with that one.
So the last one is, we all know Lee Petty won the first Daytona 500 in 1959. Who won the second Daytona 500?
Oh, that's Joe Weatherly.
You sure?
No, Joe Weatherly. Not Junior Johnson, no, Joe Weatherly.
Let's see who we got.
Richard Petty is the one that won.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Junior Johnson is the one who won, right?
Junior Johnson won the
Yeah,
second.
I knew he was right.
Nobody remembers who won the second one.
The second race.
Second race. Now, the first Daytona 500, Joe Weatherly was the first guy across the line. But after reviewing it, he was a lap down. So anyway, hey, again, guys and gals in the audience, I want to thank you guys for coming. But you know what? It is the Daytona 500. And I'm going to ask for some predictions. Who's going to win this event? So let's start with Joe Cicella, crew chief for many teams.
So who do you think, Joe?
I think Matt Kenseth.
Matt
Matt
Kenseth.
Kenseth.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You're next.
We'll
Cal.
go right around. What do you think? Who do you think?
I think Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch. Okay. Kev?
I go with my modified boy, Truex.
Martin Truex Jr.
Martin Truex Jr. Who do you think?
I think Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy Johnson. All right. What do you think?
Earnhardt.
That's a fan favorite, right? Yeah. And who do you think?
I have no idea.
Have no idea.
Take the girl, she's good.
Now, I'll tell you what. Now, you heard it here first. I'm going to tell you guys and gals who's going to win the race, and I'm going to be right. The guy who finishes first.
That old joke, huh?
Oh, anyway.
I'd like to think that Dale Earnhardt would win, but
You know, I'll tell you what.
couple of good contenders.
Hendrick Motorsports cars are always dominant in these restricted place races. Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon when he was running. I'll tell you what, and it's not my prediction, but I'll tell you, Chase Elliott looks pretty strong so far. And, you know, he's got the #1 car at Hendrick Motorsports. And if you don't think there's like an A car, B car, C car at these multiple teams, there are. And don't get me wrong, everybody wants to go out and win. Nobody's putting inferior products out there. But Chase Elliott is going to be battling for that win in the end, you know, unless he gets caught up in what they call the big one, like to happen at the Sprint Unlimited race. But we'll see what happens. It'll be a good event, and I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to the Daytona 500 every year. So anyway, I want to thank my studio audience for coming out on this miserable, miserable night. Thank you. Some of you guys came from a really far distance, Mike. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's all good. And I want to thank you on behalf of Inravio, 5051, and myself for picking up the slack for our good old departed friend WJ at myracenews.com. Him and I talked about that towards the end, and he was concerned. He goes, all this work I've done, and nobody wants to do it, and then bam, there you are. So thank you.
We're doing some good things this year. We'll be out in Las Vegas.
Oh, there you go. All right. Going out to Las Vegas, myracenews.com. Good. If you see them walking around, shake their hand, pat them on the back, because they're doing a nice job. Thank you. And Bruce, thank you. It's always a pleasure. And Kevin, I see you all the time. The girls, thanks. Yeah. And Joe, thanks. And I want to thank Chuck and Bonnie, owners of this Inravio group here, for putting on this thing and putting everything together. So thank you. And my guys in the booth, who work really hard at making me look good. And that's not an easy task, so anyway. So we're going to wrap up. So I want to thank everybody again for taking time in your busy schedules to be a part of the 5051 Racing Show. We got some nice racing going on this week, whether you're at the track or watching it on TV or DVRing it and catching it when you get home from work. But wherever your endeavors will bring you this week, please be safe, please be careful. Give somebody a hug, tell them you love them. God bless you all, and thanks for being a part of this show.